And welcome everybody to the Huddle, KGUN 9's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jason.
Okay, Pat, we are going to start with our weekly Huddle poll question as we talk Arizona basketball, coming off that home loss to BYU and that questionable, to say the least, call on Trey Townsend. That's our Huddle poll question of the week, and you can vote on kgun9.com. What are your thoughts? And I believe on X. You can also share your comments in the section here as we are live here on Tuesday afternoon. All right, what are your thoughts on the foul call against Trey Townsend at the end of Saturday's game against Richie Saunders? Gave BYU 2 foul shots to potentially win the game, which they did. Worst call ever. For those who don't know, the period after each word kind of emphasizes it. Okay. B, it was a leg check, kind of. If you look at the angle, did Townsend put his leg out there a little bit? Or C, hey, listen, it wasn't the only bad call. Arizona basketball can't be giving up 96 points at home. Pat, I know you like to say sometimes a couple can be true, and maybe A and C are, but you got to pick one here.
I went with A, while C is also true. I mean, as we say, more than one of these can be true. You may want to pick more than one, and in that case, I probably would have picked both, but I can't. So I picked, and it's an over-exaggeration, of course, to say worst call ever. There have been some pretty horrendous calls in the history of college basketball. But at McHale Center, a raucous crowd on a Saturday night, a game, a one-point game, and that call cannot ever be made. It's just that simple. Time, situation, you let them play. Even if you believe, and I'm not sure that it was a foul on Trey Townsend, even if you look at the leg and all that, the offensive player made the move, ran into the leg, in my estimation, and that's not why I just think Padilla thought he saw something he didn't see. That's what I think, because the shot was so bad, it came out of his hand so bad and airballed so short and to the left of his shooting angle, and I think Padilla just whistled what he thought he saw, and he didn't see a foul, but he thought he saw a foul. He saw the results of what looked like a foul.
But he was the trailing ref, and the official who was near to the play did not call it. Now, reason that I'm going with C is not because I'm trying to take the high road. It's if A was said terrible call, I would go with terrible. But when I see worst call ever, he definitely didn't foul him with the upper body. You can try and make a case there was a little bit of leg contact. Now, I think it was a terrible call, and if A was terrible call, that's what I would go with. But because it just says worst call ever, is it really as bad as one of those Kansas City Chiefs pass interference calls this year? Some of the calls that
it directly
led the Chiefs directly to this year's Super Bowl. I don't know. So I'm going
with directly impacted the outcome of the game without
question.
It did. The game's over if you don't call that. The Arizona wins. You call that, you give BYU the opportunity. Guy's a good free throw shooter, and now they win, and we're all left angry and frustrated. So,
we'll check back at the end of this. Go ahead. We'll check back at the end of the show and see what people go with. I highly doubt you're going to see any Juve fans go with B.
No, and you and I talked about that, and I didn't see what you see exactly. So, you could debate that, but what you can't debate, I guess, Jason, is, and I have a little different spin on what you're saying about you can't give up 96 at home. What you can't do is you can't play horrendous defense like Arizona played. That was the worst defensive effort we've seen probably since that Wisconsin game at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I didn't think the defensive effort was that bad.
It was really bad.
This was BYU playing lights out.
It was BYU repeating the same offensive sets over and over again and getting the same results almost consistently. And that was frustrating. So they just weren't, Tommy talks a lot about they understand what's going on and they'll make their own adjustments. That's why Tommy doesn't like to call timeouts sometimes, because they'll make those adjustments on their own. They're all high IQ basketball guys out there on the court. That didn't happen. And so that was frustrating. But my take on it, Jason, isn't, you can't put yourself in the position to lose to BYU like that. Well, what you can't do is you can't put yourself in position to have the Big 12 referees decide a game. So you've got to have enough of a cushion where a bad call like that doesn't hurt you.
And that's really what you hear a lot of, and Tommy Lloyd said that. But when you're talking about two really good teams and you go to the NCAA tournament, these games are going to come down to the last minute. I mean,
I'll guarantee the NCAA tournament, they're not calling that. They're not calling that.
Well, we're going to have a cushion. It just doesn't work that way.
They are not going to call that, though, in the NCAA tournament. There's no way, no how. That and Tommy Lloyd's first part of his response to the bad call was, I thought we were in the Big 12, right? And what he meant by that was, this is the conference where physical play down low is a constant, and it is
Well, it was a Pac-12 referee. Padilla was from the Pac-12, wasn't he?
well, Padilla referees all over, but
Okay.
predominantly he referees Big 12. But that's the point, is he should know that this is what the Big 12 is. There's physicality down low.
And there was no upper body contact.
Correct.
There's no case to
And
be made
so
for
that's
that.
what made this so, to me, egregious was the call. So my point is that you've got to take that out of the equation. And Arizona got down, what was it? They were down 7 late, and thanks to some heroics by Caleb Love, they come back and they take a 1-point lead, and that you just can't be in that position, because you're going to be affected. And let's give Greg Hansen credit, because he looked it up on Ken Palm, and I looked it up later to confirm it. But Tony Padilla refereed 7 games in 8 days. That was his 7th game in 8 days in 5 different states, Jason. And that kind of workload is going to catch up with the referee. And I'm not saying he was tired, but you can make your own guesses on what it's like to be a referee. Imagine this: 7 games in 8 days, which means you referee a game, you go to bed in a hotel, you wake up the next morning, and you get on a plane and you go somewhere and you referee the game that night. Then you repeat it over and over and over again for 8 days, with the exception of 1 day off in between. And to me, it's just, and he's going from Texas to Iowa to Arizona to California, back to Arizona for the game on Saturday night. It's that they've got to look at that, Jason. I know he's supposed to be one of the best. He's ranked 7th by Ken Palm as far as referees go. He grades out really well for the referees. But even Padilla, who's supposed to be one of the best, make mistakes. And at crunch time on a Saturday night on his 7th game in 8 days, I think that's too much for a referee.
If the roles were reversed, Pat, and this was going Arizona's way, and Arizona went to the line for 2 foul shots, would you be saying the same thing?
As a fan, you'd be like, wow, we really got a break there. Yeah, you would be saying you got a break. You're not going to say, oh, we're not going to accept the 2 free throws. Don't get me wrong, but you're going to say, oh, we really got lucky there. We got a big break on this one, because so that wasn't a foul.
I had a request to bring up the last second inbounding by U of A, down a point. Remember, they had the Caleb Love 3/4 length shot. I mean, do they think they're going to hit on that again? Does somebody need to show the Arizona team the Christian Laettner shot to show how you do it in the final seconds, and to throw a ball down court? Is there an issue with last second inbounding that could haunt them because they got this luck with Caleb Love in the 3/4 length shot?
No, because so my take on the last second shot, which is, it's such a roll of the dice. You don't make those very often. Caleb Love's was very unusual. But remember, when Caleb Love hit that shot, he was the second option. The first option was going to Henry Vasar at half court, and then I believe Vasar is going to grab that and then hand it off to somebody who's going to shoot. I don't think Vasar is going to shoot that shot, because you still had 3.4 or whatever it was. So I think they ran the same play they were going to run against Iowa State, but it was the pass was just too high. The idea is get it to your big man, who's going to feed it to a trailer, who's going to come up and have a wide open, say 20, 25 footer to win the game.
How about Trey Townsend not playing the whole second half until
that was odd, right?
Yeah. And, I'm kind of wondering about the rotation, because you look on the bench and sometimes you see Jack Murphy, who's the associate head coach. He goes up and gets somebody, and it doesn't look like, to come off the bench and go into the game. And it doesn't look like that was from Tommy Lloyd. I think that Jack Murphy has free reign to make a change among the 8. Yep. But I think that this had to go from Tommy Lloyd, because he said after the game that he tightened his bench. And I'm kind of curious why he tightened the bench when Townsend had 5 points and 5 rebounds in the first half. It's not like he had some bad turnovers.
Probably a matchup thing where they liked a certain matchup, and we're not privy to all that talk between the coaches. But yeah, Jack Murphy is the guy that Tommy trusts, and you've got basically an 8-man rotation. I'm a little surprised that he never got in until right at the end. I don't, in the second half, I don't understand that.
I noticed it during the half. I'm like, where's Townsend? I thought maybe he was hurt, because he had a good first half. I know they wanted Del Orso's minutes first for his shooting. They really want that. But there were a few minutes there that he could have had from either Del Orso or Carter Bryant. I'm a little surprised. Tommy Lloyd said, "Oh, it wasn't a demotion and starting Vasar," and I believe that. Because really the only way to get Vasar and the other big man, Toby Awaka, on the court at the same time is to start him. It's too hard otherwise. Either somebody's in foul trouble, or somebody's tired, or there's a matchup problem. If you want him on the court at the same time, you got to start him. And Tommy Lloyd recognizes that, and I think based on their play and how they're really different big men, that's what he did. But I don't think it's a situation. So I can understand Townsend coming off the bench for that, but I don't think it's a situation where he has to not play any minutes in the second half. Eight per people is a good rotation. We saw him go with 7 a couple of years ago when he didn't really feel comfortable with the Dama ball in there. I would prefer to see an 8-man rotation.
Yeah, I would too, and I'm not exactly sure why. I think 8 men, for the way college basketball is being played right now at this level. If you look up and down, you look at Houston and Texas Tech. They're basically 8-man rotation. Last night, Texas Tech. I don't know if you saw that game, Houston and Texas Tech, but Texas Tech was down 2 of their starters. So they were down to a 6-man rotation, Jason, and they were giving Houston all they could handle until they started wearing down that last 2 or 3 minutes, and Houston was able to open up a gap and win that game. I think they ended up with free throws and things. It was close to 9 points, maybe close to 10 points. But that 8-man rotation, I don't think it's unusual around college basketball now for where we are with NIL and where we are with the one and done players and the 5-star guys. And I just think that's kind of here to stay.
Interesting situation here as Arizona plays Utah, and a new coach for Utah. They fired their coach,
Greg Smith. Yeah.
Yeah. And Eilert, I believe, is the assistant who's going to be the interim coach. And, sometimes that happens and a team really comes fired up. You see that a little bit more when the team is home than on the road, I think, in this kind of a situation with the midseason firing. But often you see a team really come out fired up. It'll be interesting to see what Arizona gets from this Utah team tomorrow night. Obviously Utah 7-9 in the Big 12, but they might be a little bit of a different team here, trying to impress an interim head coach or even just kind of becoming free agents at the end of the year. And just kind of seeing what they do. Who knows what the dynamic was looking like. We weren't following Utah on a daily basis, but an interesting situation here at McKell Center tomorrow night.
It does seem odd, though, with only 4 games left in the regular season, and they were probably going to play 1 game in the Big 12 tournament, and to fire a coach then. I'm not sure what that really, as we say, we don't know what the inner workings of Utah basketball is, let alone what necessarily happens on a daily basis inside the locker room at Arizona. So we don't know what was going on, but it just seems like bad timing to me. Like, why don't you just let him finish out the season and go from there?
Do you remember what happened last year in the NCAA tournament? There was in the conference tournament, the team that won the Big West, they had told their coach that he wasn't going to return, and then the team got mad and then was swept through the Big West tournament.
Did. No, it could happen. I'm not sure that Utah has the talent to make something like that happen, but you never know. I think the Ken Palm metrics have Arizona winning that game handily. They have them winning the Arizona State game with relative comfort, but losing at Iowa State and losing at Kansas, although the Kansas game is really close as far as the metrics go. And Kansas is really struggling right now. They just do not look like a top 20. Well, they're not in the top 25, but they don't even look like close to being a top 25.
I believe they were preseason number 1, and now they're out of the
top 25.
They
were preseason number 1.
I think 5 of the preseason top 10 teams aren't in the top 25 right now.
Including UConn, and I think what they and I think they were talking about. I also saw something like the last 10 NCAA basketball champions, only Duke is left ranked in the top 25 right now, because UConn's out, Carolina's out. You go down the list. So Baylor's not in there. So you go down that list of the last 10 years, and it's really only Duke, and Duke's got an excellent chance to win another national championship this year. So does Houston, by the way. I think Houston does too. I think Houston's got a chance to win a national championship.
Do you think psychologically, if Arizona goes into the NCAA tournament with 12 losses, it'll hurt their seeding?
Yeah, I think it will. Right now,
I think it did to the Arizona women last year.
Yep.
Remember, they played the toughest schedule in the nation.
Yeah.
And then they had to do with a play-in game. They were an 11 seed.
Right.
Now, I don't think this Arizona men's team is an 11 seed.
No.
Team right now, Pat, with 9 losses. They have a road game left with Iowa State. They have a Big 12 tournament.
Well,
Okay.
Kansas too. Kansas is still a quad one team. They're just not ranked in the top 25.
So you could have a situation where they go into the tournament with 12 losses. I don't think that's going to put them in the 11 seed play-in.
No,
But
no, no, no,
but you
no,
don't
no.
want an 8 or a 9 seed. I really would rather have this team
Yeah,
have a 6 seed.
I agree. Well, and really, Jason, what you have to back up and say is you still have to be one of those four teams, top four teams in the Big 12 to get that double bye in that tournament, with that mammoth tournament with 16 teams in Kansas City. So you've got to finish in the top four. So for Arizona, what that means, they're sitting in second right now. If they get the win tomorrow night, they'll be all alone in second with 3 games left. You've got to win 2 of those last 3 to really ensure yourselves of being in that top 4. Houston's already got a share of the lead. You want to be second. Texas Tech and Iowa State are probably those 4 teams, and Kansas is the one that's left out. You don't want to lose to Kansas, let's say, and have the Jayhawks go in 4th place and you drop to 5th, and now you're playing on the second day of the tournament instead of waiting until the 3rd day.
That's a tough scenario. It's an interesting way they do that, Big 12 basketball tournament, because, I would have thought, okay, 16 teams, just have a Sweet 16 and play it out that way, but they don't do it that way.
They don't want to burden the top teams with extra games. You want to have
that might be it, because you'd have to play 4 games in 4 days.
Right.
And, maybe you make a case, a top player on a top team can get hurt that way.
And not really accomplishing anything, right? Because you didn't even make it to the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, you want to lessen the burden. You want to lessen the stress on the top teams. If you give 4 double buys, then you can play 2 games and win a championship, right? Is it 3 games?
Is that how it works?
Is it 3 games? Yeah, it's a double buy, Jason.
3 games.
It's a double buy. It's a double buy. So maybe 3 games. But yeah, you've got a double buy.
We got to go back and revisit that.
Yeah,
because that's an interesting situation. I would still think you would have to play 3 games.
Yeah, I think it's 3. I think I'm wrong, but my initial thought. But it's 3 games. But you don't want to play 5 games, because that's what the teams that don't get the double bye, right?
Right.
It's 5 games.
Right, and those teams weren't going to the tournament anyway. So
if
they have to do a miracle, then they have to do a miracle. But you don't want a top team that's already going to the tournament to have to play 4 games in 4 days and completely tire out the team. God forbid somebody gets hurt.
Yep.
My thinking is that's why they do that.
Without question.
That's initially you would think 16 team Sweet 16. So definitely an interesting situation there. The Pac-12 tournament was a little bit more straightforward. You've got 12 teams, so 9 through 12 have to play an extra game. The top 8 are already in the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of made sense there. So
it's really the same. It's the same scenario in the top 8 teams are already in the quarterfinals, right? But but you've got to get is it? I don't know. We'd have to look at the bracket, but you're basically trying.
We will revisit that. I guarantee you.
You want to weed out those 8 teams early on.
All right, I'm looking it up right now, Pat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Add it a little bit. I'm
confident that it's a double bye, and I'm confident that those top 4 teams do not have to play in the first 2 days of the tournament. So you've got 4 teams that are already in the quarterfinals. It's 4 teams that are already in the quarterfinals, and you've got 8 teams playing to get to the quarterfinals.
Okay, that sounds right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. The 4, 1, 2, and the 3 seeds are already in the quarterfinals.
Yep.
Okay. The 8, 7, 6 seed, 5, 6, 7, and 8
are already in the second round.
Yeah, which is really the round of 16 or 4.
Yeah.
And so they would have to play 5 games. Right? And so the other teams would have to play 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, no, 5. Hold on a second.
The bottom teams have to play 5.
Quarters,
the middle teams
4. Okay,
Yep.
got it. Okay, got it. Yes, okay. So the 1, 2, we got it, everybody. The 1, 2, 3, and the 4 seeds, they're already in the quarterfinals. They only have to play 3 games.
Correct.
Okay. 5, 6, 7, and 8, they're already in the round of 16. They would have to play 4.
Yes, to win a championship. Yep.
But the 10, 9, 10.
There it is. Ryan, our producer's got it up on the screen right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Let me go back to him because I was looking at the screen.
Yeah. So it's the same thing you were just saying. So yes, the top 4 are already sitting there waiting while those bottom 8 teams have to fight it out to get to the next 4. Then they get to the next 4. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
I get it. It's kind of what we talked about earlier. You know, those teams do deserve a little bit more something for the regular season, and you need to make the regular season matter, right? You know,
Worth something, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So I'm totally fine with that. And yeah, you want Arizona to be one of those top 4 teams.
So I guess going back to the original point would be, I think as long as Arizona is one of those top 4 seeds, they're probably going to get a 4 seed somewhere around there in the NCAA tournament. They could slip to a 5, I suppose, but you don't want to slip out of that top 4. It is a powerful conference, no doubt. It's probably the second best conference right now in basketball behind the SEC. But you know, those top 4 probably going to get really good seeds in the NCAA tournament. The 5th place team, say Kansas right now, that Kansas team might be a 6 seed, as you were talking about. And beyond that, you know, you might end up being a play-in game. You never know.
Yeah. So definitely a lot to play for as we get into the teeth of March Madness, which is going to be a little later this year. It's 1 week later.
Yeah.
Right. The selection show is the Sunday, the 16th, if I'm not mistaken. So extra week kind of a basketball to play with. And it's going to be pretty eventful for Arizona with the games they have remaining. So some exciting stuff here for March Madness.
Yeah,
all right, let's wrap it up here with our Huddle poll question.
Yeah, how's that going?
Let's see here. What are the votes? Thoughts on the foul call against Trey Townsend at the end of Saturday's game? You know, Pat, I think that if this was right after the game, it would be much higher to A.
You're right.
Worst call ever.
If we had the show on Sunday, maybe.
To think about it, it's like, yeah, it was an awful call, but come on, guys, we got some games left. We can't give up 96 at home.
Well,
and then I think we got some non-Arizona fans voting number 2.
And even Tommy Lloyd, who is he's the champion of bringing the temperature down, right?
Right.
He is amazing at really staying calm, cool, and collected. And he came into that post-game news conference and was calm, cool, and collected and said it was a bad call. And he went on to explain that you can't put yourself in that position because you can't be giving up 90-some points, 96 points in this case, 90-plus points at home ever. I mean, and that hadn't happened in forever, right? It hadn't happened in decades.
Well, Pat, I wasn't going to share this story, but now I am, because you said how calm, cool, and collected Tommy Lloyd was. So here's the story. Often, Pat, people dream about what they think about 15 minutes before they go to sleep. And I was tired that night. I go to the Tommy Lloyd post-game news conference, and I immediately drove home and went to sleep. I had a dream. I'm not making this up. I had a dream that I had a conversation with Tommy Lloyd, and I don't remember much of the conversation, unfortunately, but I do remember a specific part of the dream. And I'm not making this up. And Tommy Lloyd said to me, Jason, you need to go to Calm Down Town. Calm Down Town. I've never heard that phrase before. I don't know where this came from, but he said, you need to go to Calm Down Town. And so that's all I remember.
Maybe that's your subconscious really telling you that you need to take a page out of Tommy Lloyd's playbook and calm down. Yeah, I mean, it's probably valuable.
Pat Parris, dream interpreter.
It's one of my many hats I wear, Jason. But you know, the thing is, though, you know, as fired up as all of us Wildcat fans were, I was there Saturday night. I was
mad after the game.
What's that?
I was mad after the game.
Yeah, I was mad. I was frustrated, and you know, I went home and I immediately launched the YouTube app so I could watch Tommy Lloyd's press conference and saw it, and I thought, there's Tommy Lloyd doing what Tommy Lloyd does best, and that's just keeping it calm, even keeled. You know, I guarantee you that wasn't the message he had for his players necessarily, but when you get in front of the media, it's time to just lower the temperature, and that you know, Tony Padilla became public enemy number 1 for Saturday night here in Tucson, and I think as time goes on, judging by our poll, things have calmed down for the hatred of one referee. But I think Tommy did a nice job of kind of getting out in front of that and saying, look, a bad call did not determine this game. Our bad defense determined this game. And we got to
wrap it up. Yeah. Can you imagine if Tony Padilla refs the U of A ASU game? And can you imagine if Hurley starts yelling at him And can you imagine if Padilla goes to Tommy Lloyd and tees him up? You will. I don't know. Hold on to your seat.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
all I'll say. All right. On that note,
yeah.
Pat.
Yeah. I think real quick, Tony
Yeah,
Padilla
yeah.
needs to understand what Tommy Lloyd did for his own self.
Well, he called him one of the better refs, and he said
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. Listen, you got to say, listen, you got to be honest
It
here.
was a bad call.
You can't
Bad call.
BS and say it wasn't
Yep.
a bad call. It was a
Yep.
bad call. I don't think it was as atrocious because you could make a little bit of a case for but it was no upper body contact. Late in the game, you don't call that.
You don't call that.
You don't call it.
You don't
We're in
call
agreement on that. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. This has been the Huddle, KO9's weekly streaming sports talk show. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. We'll see you right back here next week.